Hi, everybody. Paul Gray here, inviting you to spend a few minutes with me with Convertible Conversations today. All this week, we've been talking about love stories, and I've given you different stories of people who have given me unconditional love at different times in my life. I want to finish up today with two stories. I'll make them both brief. These were two brothers. Last name was Williams, and the Williams Fund at the University of Kansas, if you're familiar with the Jayhawks, they started that as the giving arm of the athletic department that people give to. I met these guys when I was in college, when I was maybe a sophomore, and they were 20 years older than me. They were businessmen, and they just took a liking to me. And they helped me in all sorts of different ways. I had a band, and they introduced me to lots of other people who hired our band and things like that. Then I graduated from KU and decided I wanted to stay here in Lawrence, which I did, and buy a local music store. There was a music store, only one in town, and it was for sale. And I knew the owner, and I'd bought some trumpets from him and things like that. Well, one of these men, Skipper Williams, helped me negotiate to buy it, to verify the inventory was good and all of that type of stuff. So here I am, I'm 21 years old. I go to the bank and I borrow $65,000 with no collateral and no credit, good or bad. I just graduated from college and I didn't have any money. My folks were hardworking, good, maybe lower middle class people who didn't have any money. And I just went in and signed this loan at the bank. And I thought at the time, I was very naive, I still am, I thought anybody can do that. Well, I didn't know until after this gentleman died, 7 years later, that he had personally guaranteed my loan. He'd signed a personal letter of guarantee separate from the loan so that I didn't know about it, that said, if Paul Gray doesn't pay this $65,000, I will. And of course, that's the only way I could get the loan, but I didn't know that. That was an act of unconditional love. Now, this man, he wasn't a spiritual man. He was a hard partying guy, very good, nice man, but he liked to party. He liked to drink. And you wouldn't know from watching him or listening to him that he had any spiritual affinity at all. But I know now that all good things come from God, and God is in all of us. And I have to think that it was God, Christ in him, motivating him to guarantee that loan for me. That was certainly unconditional love, because there was nothing he could get in return for that. And I mean, it didn't show that he owned any part of the business or anything like that. Nothing he could get in return from that. He only had that liability. And of course, I did pay off the loan, and so he didn't have to. But that was an example of unconditional love. Then, that I believe God motivated him to do. Then when he died very suddenly and unexpectedly when he was 53 years old, my band, of course, we knew him and loved him and were very close to him. His family asked for my band to play for his funeral, which we did. And some of the guys flew in from out of town, from far away, and because they had been in a band and they'd moved away. And we got together and rehearsed and talked about old times and stuff. And then we all went out to dinner and had wives and girlfriends with us. And there were maybe 15 or 16 of us. We went to a local steakhouse. And, you know, we told the server, okay, this part of the bill is for me and my wife and all that kind of stuff. So we all had a good time. Most of us had steaks and we had drinks and stuff like that. So it was obviously a fairly large bill, but we were each going to pay our own share. So comes time to leave, and I asked the server, I said, could you bring us our bill? And the server said, Mr. Williams has paid your bill. He wasn't even there with us. I'm not sure how he knew we were going to be there eating, but he did. This was the man's brother who had died, and he had called ahead and said, I'm going to pay for the bill for that group, whatever it is. That was another indication, another example of unconditional love. Doing something for us that we didn't ask for, that there was no possible way he could get anything in return for it. Just a wonderful, nice thing to do for us. And since then, I've been motivated to do similar things like that. not on the scale that these guys did, because they were very rich and very successful business people, but within the means that I have. And before I knew what was happening, I now know that it was God inside of me encouraging me to do that. So those were some examples of unconditional love that I've shown you this week that I received. I hope you'll take the time to go back and think about times when people have shown you unconditional love. If those people are still around and still living, call them, write them a thank you note, or get together with them and say, hey, I just want to thank you for that. It'll mean a lot to them. And of course, listen to Jesus every day and ask him, Jesus, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to say? How do you want me to help people today? And he will prompt you to give unconditional love to people. And when you do, it's a lot of fun. Thanks for watching, everybody. Paul Gray saying so long. See you next week.